Okay, the baby boomers. These were folks that were born between 1943 and 1960. Right now, they're roughly 54 to 71 years old. And every generation has a story. So, what is the baby boomers' story? Well, these were the good kids of the suburbs, the Beaver Cleavers and the Wally Cleavers. Eisenhower built the freeways, and the suburbs were sprawling. And the GI generation came back from the war, and they had children, and they had a lot of children. In fact, they had a baby boom of children, which is why they're called that. And and this was a time of remarkable affluence in the United States. The GDP tripled between the end of World War II and the 1970s. And the interesting thing about baby boomers, which is very important to point out, is that something happened to them in their somewhere between the time they were teenagers and their mid 20s. And it was really kind of a rebellious streak against all this consumerism. This was a time when people were getting washing machines and blenders, and consumerism was at an all-time high. Mad Men was Madison Avenue was full tilt at this time in consumerism, and the boomers felt that there's something more than that. In fact, I put up this little slide of The Graduate because it very much exemplifies the boomer experience. And many of you might have been too young to remember The Graduate, but it's a classic movie, and in it, the protagonist, Benjamin, just graduates from a prestigious four-year school. He's out at a pool party with that his parents are throwing him, and a friend of his dad's comes up to him and says, "Benjamin, I have one word for you, and that word is plastics." Now, plastics at that time was a code word for you could have anything you want. Your future is the world is your oyster, and you could have anything you want. You could have a career, you could be successful, you could make a lot of money. It's kind of like saying today, whispering biotechnology or nanotechnology. But at the time, Benjamin's response was very much of a boomer response, and really was exemplary of the attitude and the ethic of that time of young boomers. And what he did was he put on a scuba gear and he went to the bottom of the pool. And then he went on to act reasonably irresponsibly throughout the rest of the movie by chasing after a love and having an affair with somebody, and it was kind of a crazy movie. It's worth seeing, by the way. But this was like an anthem for the boomers. It was like a yes, we are different. We are searching for something bigger. And then the late 60s and the early 70s, you had an enormous amount of protests. You had the authority figures that were failing, according to boomers. You had President Nixon and the Watergate scandal. You had Vietnam. You had an immense amount of protests. So all of this churning that went on that created who the boomers are today. And it actually created four traits that boomers have today. And the first is challenging rules and authority. And I'm going to show you a video. This is a Ameriprise video by Dennis Hopper, and I think it really exemplifies the boomers and how this rebellious streak really translates into later in life. So let's roll it.
Your dreams are crazy. They're impossible. That's what they said back in the day when your dreams changed everything. That's not going to stop now. You don't turn your dreams over to the authorities at age 60. You find someone who believes in your dreams.
Start with your dreams, and your Ameriprise financial advisor, working with you one-to-one, face-to-face, will help you plan to make your dreams realities.
See, the thing about dreams is they don't retire.
Now, that's not your typical 68-year-old man, is it, right? But that is a baby boomer in his late 60s. Black shirt, black pants on a white beach, very much about the boomer. I'm going to do this on my own terms. I'm going to do this myself. By the way, every generation has a slogan, and the slogan that I attribute to the boomers is "My way or the highway." Now, the second characteristic of the boomers is they're individualistic in nature. This is the generation that invented the personal computer. Walter Isaacson, who wrote the book called The Innovators, who runs the Aspen Institute, said that no other generation could possibly have invented the personal computer. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, a couple of geeks, hippie geeks in their garage in Silicon Valley, found a way to get away from these massive mainframe computers, and so that everybody could have their own computer, a very individualistic kind of thing, right? And it was very much about unhooking from the grid. So it wasn't just about the technology advances at the time, it was around the overall ethic that was being experienced by the baby boomers when they were young, which very much frames who they are as people today. The third characteristic of boomers is idealistic. There were protests on the Mall in Washington, D.C., where there was over 2 million people that showed up. This was a time of remarkable idealism. Coca-Cola had a very well-known commercial called I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, and which very much resonated with boomers at that time. Finally, and this seems a little unusual, but believe me, anything the boomers do, they do big. They did they became hippies, and that was big. They became yuppies, and that was big. And then when they got to work, they made that a big deal. Boomers are work focused, if you haven't noticed. This is the generation that invented workaholism. They're all about work, and they according to many Gen Xers and millennials, they make their lives miserable by focusing so much on work. So here you're getting a picture of the baby boomers, and really not only how they were shaped, but how this plays out in the day-to-day of who they are as a generation. Now, I'm going to play a video and introduce to you Neil Howe. Neil Howe is the president and founder of Life Course Associates, who actually came up with the name Millennials. And Neil and I recorded these videos a little while ago for your benefit, so you could get a good feel for baby boomers. So here we go. This video is called Meet the Boomers.
To understand any generation, you need to understand its location and history. Boomers were the children of the post-World War II high, when parents were giving their kids more and more freedom. These were the feed-on-demand Dr. Spock babies, the indulged beaver cleavers of the 1950s suburbs, the screaming long-haired radicals on college campuses, and the inner-city rioters of the 1960s. By the late 1970s, they emerged as yuppies, upwardly mobile young professionals who were passionately serious about their careers. Boomers have been a generation of trends from first wave to last. First wave boomers had structured childhoods, married earlier, did better economically, and today are mostly retired. Last wave boomers had wilder childhoods, married later, have struggled economically, and are now delaying retirement. But whether first wave or last, two core traits have defined boomers throughout their lives. The first is their individualism, a sense of self-sufficient liberation from the need for other people or institutions to help them. For example, they are the first generation of women to think of themselves as economically self-sufficient. They are the generation Robert Putnam described in Bowling Alone. They strike out alone to do what they are passionate about rather than following the group. And they placed a whole new value on choosing a meaningful career, not just one that will put bread on the table. The second boomer trait is their values orientation, their moral seriousness about everything they do. In the 1960s, when people talked about values, they were usually talking about college kids. Today, they're usually talking about people in their 50s. Back then, it was the counterculture, and today it's the culture wars. These two traits have shaped the role boomers play in the workplace and have given them special strengths which younger generations generally acknowledge. First, because boomers take their work very seriously, they are known for their work ethic and deep expertise. C-suite executives worry that when boomers retire, their almost fanatical dedication, depth, and mastery of their work will be irreplaceable. HR professionals call this declining workplace centrality, moving from old people to young people today. Boomers' second strength is the vision thing. They love thinking about a brand's larger meaning and re-envisioning its appeal. If you have a mission statement to draft or a corporate culture to shape, you turn to boomers. When properly incentivized, boomers can also be gifted mentors who are eager to pass on their values to younger employees. This can be incredibly valuable to mentorship-hungry millennials. However, boomers also have some special challenges in the workplace that can frustrate other generations. The flip side of their work ethic is workaholism. Boomers value work for work's sake, regardless of efficiency. They come in on a Monday announcing proudly that they worked 80 hours last week, and Xers mutter under their breath, "But what did you get done?" Because they take their work so seriously, boomers also expect a lot of satisfaction from their careers and a lot of respect from their coworkers. This can lead to conflicts with Xers who wish boomers would stop being so perfectionistic and just get the job done. Boomers also struggle with authority. In their youth, they protested against the man, and now that they are the man, some have trouble assuming that role comfortably. Boomer managers may find it hard to take charge the way millennials want them to because they battled authority so hard when they themselves were young. Boomers' generational traits have long shaped America's workplaces. Now in top leadership positions and delaying retirement, they will continue to have an important influence.